Caloran floated within the observation chamber, his tendrils twitching in a slow rhythm of thought. Before him, the holographic display showed the usual, unremarkable feed from the probe orbiting the human colony world of AO7. The humans had been there for 15 of their solar cycles, carving their mark upon the once untouched land. Their structures sprawled outward in chaotic but efficient patterns, factories billowed steam into the sky, and their tiny, soft-bodied forms hurried about, working tirelessly, primitive, industrious, reckless. The Zeltheri had watched hundreds of species rise and fall, observed them through centuries of silent study. None had ever seen them back. Caloran's tendrils stilled as something on the display caught his attention. A group of humans stood near one of their towering sensor arrays. It was a crude thing, barely capable of detecting anomalies within their own atmosphere, let alone a cloaked Zeltheri probe floating beyond their moon's orbit. And yet, one of them, a female with dark hair and a weathered face, had turned her gaze directly upward. Not just toward the sky. Directly at his probe. Then, his console crackled. A burst of electromagnetic interference flared, rattling through the silence. It was a directed transmission. Impossible. Caloran's 3 hearts pulsed erratically. He tapped into the transmission, filtering out the noise, trying to make sense of what the humans were broadcasting. The frequency was rudimentary, their language crude, but the words were unmistakable. "We see you." A cold wave of fear swept through him. No species had ever detected their presence. The humans were not advanced enough to break through Zeltheri cloaking. It should have been beyond their capability. And yet, they had spoken. Caloran hesitated only a moment before activating the emergency beacon to the High Council. The silence was broken, and nothing would ever be the same again. Caloran stood before the High Council, his elongated form rigid with unease. The chamber was vast, its walls pulsing with the soft bioluminescence of the Zeltheri homeworld. Around him, the elders of his kind floated in a silent semicircle, their tendrils drifting in slow, deliberate motions, expressions of deep contemplation. The recording played again. The grainy human transmission echoed through the chamber. "We see you." A tremor passed through the gathered elders. Councillor Viraki, her carapace dark with age, was the first to break the silence. "No species has ever perceived us before. This anomaly is disturbing." Another elder, Zathal, whose form was wreathed in regal gold, pulsed with agitation. "Their technology is insufficient to breach our cloaking. This is either an improbable coincidence or something far worse." His gaze bore into Caloran. "How long have you observed them?" "Many cycles. They have always been reckless, curious. Their kind probes where it should not. But never has any species demonstrated an awareness of our presence." Viraki's tendrils curled inward. "Then we must ask, what changed?" Silence fell. Caloran did not have an answer. Councillor Geraldine, the most cautious of them all, let out a slow, resonating hum. "If they have developed the ability to perceive us, they are no longer a species to be ignored. They must be studied further. And if they prove to be a threat..." The chamber darkened as a deep understanding passed between the elders. The Zeltheri had never interfered with lesser species before. But containment was always an option. Caloran's 3 hearts pounded in unison. He had spent years observing humanity, marveling at their contradictions, fragile yet unrelenting, reckless yet ingenious. Were they truly dangerous? Or had they simply done what no other species had dared? "They will not stop," he said finally. "If they see us, they will seek us." Councillor Viraki's voice was firm. "Then we must act first." A decision was made. Humanity would be watched more closely than ever before. If they continued down this path, they would not be given the chance to reach beyond their world. The silent watchers of the stars had been seen. And now, for the first time, they would decide whether to remain observers or become something far more dangerous. Caloran's secondary arms twitched as he descended into the atmosphere of EO7. The Zeltheri had never set foot on a developing world before, not like this. Observing from afar was safe, silent. But the High Council had deemed humanity a potential threat, and threats had to be understood. The landing was undetected, hidden beneath the interference of a geomagnetic storm. His cloaking field wavered, adjusting to the gravity, and as he stepped onto human soil, Caloran felt something new, an uneasy thrill. The humans were close. From the shadows, he observed them. The colony was not like the sterile, ordered worlds of the Zelthari. It was chaotic, filled with sound and movement. Humans shouted to one another, their crude machines rattling and sparking as they worked. They laughed, argued, gestured wildly. No two were alike, each face bore different lines, colors, scars, expressions. He expected recklessness. What he did not expect was ingenuity. Near the massive sensor array, a group of engineers had gathered. They were arguing over calculations, pointing at star maps, adjusting crude instruments. He listened through his translator, trying to understand their strange logic. The signal came from here, I swear. That's impossible. There's nothing there. Then why do the numbers keep shifting? It's like it's compensating for something. Caloran's tendrils stiffened. They weren't just guessing. They were tracking something. He stepped back, instinct telling him to retreat. But in his distraction, his foot shifted against loose metal debris, sending a sharp clang into the night air. The humans froze. Caloran's breath stilled as the woman from the transmission, the one who had first spoken the impossible words, turned toward the sound. Her eyes narrowed. I know you're there. Caloran felt a surge of something unfamiliar. He had spent years watching lesser species from the shadows, unseen, unknown. Now, for the first time, a lesser species was looking back. He did the unthinkable. He deactivated his cloaking field. Gasps rang out as the humans staggered back, eyes wide, their bodies coiled with tension. Yet, they did not run. They did not scream. They simply stared. And then, the woman smiled. Took you long enough to say hello. Caloran's 3 hearts pounded in disharmony. The humans did not flee. They did not attack. They simply waited. Their eyes, filled with something dangerously close to amusement, locked onto his towering form. This was wrong. This was impossible. He started, but the words faltered. The Zelthari had never spoken directly to an uncontacted species before. There were no protocols for this, no ancient scripts to follow. The dark-haired human woman took a step forward, her movements deliberate but cautious. I don't know if you can understand me, but I have a lot of questions. Caloran's translator whirred, processing her speech. He had listened to their language for years, but had never needed to speak it. With great effort, he formed a response, his voice deep and reverberating. You should not see me. The woman laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not a fearful one. A genuine, amused laugh. Yeah, well, we do a lot of things we shouldn't. Caloran's tendrils twitched. These creatures did not behave like the others. They were too bold, too curious. The rest of the humans, 5 of them, all varying in age and stature, kept their distance, but their fascination was unmistakable. Their expressions were open, questioning. There was no reverence, no fear. They did not see him as a god, nor as a monster. They saw him as an equal. You should not know of us. The woman crossed her arms. And yet, here we are. So, what happens now? Caloran hesitated. The answer should have been simple. He should leave, report this to the council, and let them decide humanity's fate. But as he stood before these creatures, something in him resisted. For centuries, the Zelthari had watched young species rise and fall, never interfering, never guiding. They believed themselves above the crude struggles of the lesser races. But these humans were different. They were staring directly at the unknown. And they were not afraid. Caloran's voice was steady as he spoke the words that would break a sacred law. What do you wish to know? Caloran knew the moment he spoke, he had committed treason. The Zelthari had one unwavering law: observe, but never interfere. And yet, here he was, standing before a group of humans, answering their questions. The dark-haired woman, Dr. Evelyn Carter, as she had introduced herself, was relentless. She fired off inquiries as though she had been waiting for this moment her entire life. Why have you been watching us? How long have you been here? Are we the only ones? Caloran answered cautiously. He told them that the Zelthari had observed countless species, always from afar. That they had been watching humanity since they first cracked the atom. That no, they were not alone. The humans took in this knowledge without panic, without hysteria. Their expressions were not of fear, but of determination. So why reveal yourself now? Dr. Carter asked, her eyes sharp. You've had thousands of years. Why today? Caloran hesitated. Because humanity was changing. Because they had seen what no species had seen before. Because a sudden pulse in his neural implant made him stiffen. A direct communication from the High Council. Return immediately. Cease contact. The order was absolute. Caloran looked at the humans. They knew. He saw it in their faces. They didn't need to hear the message to understand what had happened. They're calling you back, aren't they? Dr. Carter asked. Caloran exhaled slowly. Yes. Silence stretched between them. And then, something unexpected happened. Dr. Carter smiled. Not in victory. Not in arrogance. But in understanding. Then you better go tell them the truth, she said. Tell them we're ready to talk. Caloran felt a deep, unshakable certainty settle within him. The Zelthari High Council would not want to talk. They would want to control. To silence. To erase. But for the first time in his long life, Caloran found himself wondering. What if humanity wasn't the threat? What if they were the answer? And what if the true danger wasn't in humanity seeing the Zelthari, but in the Zelthari refusing to see them? Caloran watched the humans from the depths of his vessel, concealed behind layers of cloaking and interference. He had defied the Council's will and returned to EO7, not to observe, but to warn. The silent war had begun. Zelthari agents had already infiltrated human systems, subtly interfering with their research, ensuring promising projects stalled, creating obstacles so perfectly natural that humanity would blame themselves. A new energy source, too unstable. A breakthrough in faster-than-light travel, suddenly deemed impossible. A missing scientist, a failed experiment, a delay in funding. The humans suspected nothing. And yet, they continued. Despite every roadblock, every setback, they adapted. They found alternate solutions. When a door was closed, they built a new one. Caloran had never seen such resilience, such sheer refusal to surrender. It was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. And then, the inevitable happened. A signal, stronger than before, pulsed through the void. It was not a question. It was not an invitation. It was a statement. We know what you are doing. Caloran's breath hitched. This was not the work of a single scientist, not a mere accident of discovery. Humanity had confirmed their presence. Moments later, a message pulsed through the encrypted Zelthari channels, an emergency distress call from their agents embedded in human society. Their covers had been blown. Humans had started looking into data anomalies, patterns too perfect to be natural. The silence had been broken, and humanity was listening. Then, the final transmission came. You watched us in silence. Now, we are watching you. Caloran's tendrils trembled. He turned his gaze to the stars, to the countless observation drones scattered across human space. And for the first time in Zelthari history, the Watchers were being watched. The war of perception was over. And humanity had won.